Gordon's up. What's up, Gordon? He says, hey guys, thanks very much again for your Hump to Help. I read this question prior to the previous question, Gordon, to myself, and it sounds like a question that you've asked many times before. So I don't know. We'll go ahead and answer it again because we didn't have a lot of questions anyways. But I swear to God, we've answered this question before, or at least it sounds very similar to some of the other questions. But anyways, I just thought that that was kind of funny. He says, I know you've said that local organic SEO is harder now, mainly because, and he's talking about local organic SEO, guys. That's for ranking, organic underneath the map section. Is now harder mainly because of the major local directories dominating the first page. But if you wanted to rank your own multi-location local directory site with strong on-page SEO as well as normal off-page SEO, would it be possible to outrank the major directory sites since they may not have strong on-page SEO for each location and may not do extensive off-page SEO either? Yeah, it's certainly possible. When we've talked about that before, it's possible to outrank even in the more metropolitan areas, the major directory sites with enough force applied, right? And that's essentially the case. It's if you have enough force applied, which can be as a combination of on-page as well as off-page stuff, can you outrank like Yelp or Home Advisor or Angie's List? Yeah, of course you can. But what is the return on investment for that, right? That's the key. And so, and I know I've answered this in the past too, where it's going to be harder to outrank those directory sites is going to be the more metropolitan areas, which are the more searched, more commonly searched keywords. For example, and I know I've used this example answering this very question before. That's why I know I've answered this before. But again, I'm okay with answering it now because we don't have a ton of questions. Fairfax County, Virginia. It's got 23 different locations or towns, municipalities within the county. Fairfax City being just a very small one within the greater county. But there's a bunch of different areas, or what you could call suburbs, but they're different towns, right? So like Vienna, Tyson's Corner, Oakton, there's a bunch of them, right? Fairfax Station is another one. My point is, most people in that entire county, doesn't matter whether they're in Vienna or Tyson's Corner or Oakton or wherever they are, they're just going to search tree service Fairfax, right? Or Fairfax tree service or something like that if they're looking for a tree service in that area, no matter which township they're in, because they know they're in Fairfax. So that trying to outrank Angie's List and Yelp and Home Advisor and things like that for that general term, for that greater, more commonly used geo modifier or local modifier is going to be a hell of a lot more difficult than trying to outrank Yelp and all those directory sites for tree service Tyson's Corner or tree service Vienna or tree service Oakton. You get the idea. So I've always said that if you're going to, especially if you're going to build a directory site, or if you're going to optimize a client site that has, service area business where they serve all those different areas, you're better off creating individual landing pages, especially with silo structure, for each one of those suburb areas with the greater, more commonly used location modifier phrase as the top of the silo. Right? Because then what you do is with internal linking and everything else, you create the relevancy and what Network Empire always called buoyancy, which helps to rank that more general term, in this case, tree service Fairfax, right? In this, example that I'm sharing. So yes, you can do it. It's better to start with the less competitive, smaller suburb areas because the bigger business directories don't typically target those. It's not that you will still see examples of them, having index pages, directory index pages for the smaller suburb areas, but the SEO teams for the big directories will spend money and effort on ranking for the bigger terms, right? So the more generalized location modifier type keywords than they do on the suburb areas because they have limited resources on a national level. In other words, does that make sense? They've got deep pockets, bigger budgets, teams of SEO people and all that kind of stuff. So they focus on the more metropolitan areas and they usually often don't put much effort on the smaller suburb areas or towns within counties and that kind of stuff. And that's where your opportunity lies, your best opportunity to get quick results at with a lesser opportunity cost. In other words, like I said, your return on investment. It's easier to rank a suburb type keyword and get it monetized immediately, even if it's a smaller revenue that it's generating, than spending months and months and months trying to outrank for the harder, much more competitive term that, yes, it's going to generate more revenue, but if you've got to spend a shit ton of time, effort, and money trying to get that ranked before you ever see penny number one, then why, again, you're much better off. It's a much better approach to start targeting the smaller areas that you can monetize much quicker, if that makes sense. And I know you guys got some comments on that.
Yeah, I'm going to point out our DC plumber in DC test, where we took on Yelp, Angie's List, Roto Rooter, John C. Flood, all of the big hitters in the Washington DC area for plumbing, and it can totally be done. Now the question is whether your client has enough money, or what your budget is, because the link building alone, this is that million link test, right? The link building alone can get into the thousands of dollars. So if you have to run press releases, which is between four and five, $400 to $500 in press releases, you're gonna need embeds. You're going to need the Drive Stack plus G-Site. You're going to definitely need the syndication network. The entity has to be right. So all of the work has to be in place. So you're talking about what, $2,000 to go after that. Now, in the long run, it's definitely going to be worth it, correct? Because of the leads that you're going to get. This is one of those cases where I mentioned the plumber had to take one of his phones off the hook. He couldn't handle the calls. All right. So yeah. It's just one of those things. How much money do you have to spend on this project? I mean, what's your budget, and how are you going to use that budget to go after and outranking or be able to rank within this? Because you'll see that the G-Site ranks. We rank in the 3-pack, of course. It ranks in organic.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I was just looking at some of the different borough names in DC to see what pops up. But yeah, this is what you were talking about. And see Marco's Google site here for the, he's ranked number 1 in maps, but then in Google site is number 3 because it's pushed, at least from where I'm searching, it's pushed down below Yelp and Angie's List. And that's what I was saying, Gordon, was that, again, organic, that, there's a lot of money that these companies put into ranking or in organic. They might not have a maps listing. That's where your real edge is. But for a directory style site, you're not going to have maps listings anyways, right? If that's what you're trying to build, you're going to be competing down here. And that's why I was saying something like DC, there is money being pumped into the SEO teams for these areas, for Yelp and Angie's List. And look, Home Advisor number 4. And Marco was able to squeeze into there by doing what we do. But again, it's what is at what cost, right? And that's why if you are able to target, like, for example, DuPont Circle is an area in DC, you have a better opportunity. Like here's SpartanMan.com and Spartan Man. He's got 2 listings in the top 4, and then plumberwashington.org and wheatandSons.com, Thomas Clark or eClark.com. He's got 2 in the top 10. You can see, obviously, this is a borough or a district within the city of Washington, D.C., and you can see that organically, Yelp's got a couple listings, but then the rest are almost all individual players. Does that make sense? So that's why. Go ahead.
Yeah, after pushing all of that power initially so that you can get into DC, then it becomes easier, what you just mentioned, because now we're expanding the drive stack. We're adding depth and breadth, as Jeffrey Smith calls it. And it just becomes incrementally easier as you go, so that it's not going to take a million links to rank for these outlying areas. It's going to be that much easier. And pushing into those outlying areas will actually help. It'll, again, Network Empire, it'll create buoyancy for your top market level keyword, which is the DC plumber. But this is again, this is a 2-year, well, over 2 years, over a 2-year-old test, which, basically nothing has been done since then. And imagine if we had just kept at it, we could probably be challenging Angie's List and Yelp. And I have no doubt that we could take them down. But the whole point behind this, it was just a test. We wanted to test and see how far we could go with power. And it just goes to show that if you push enough power, yes, you can get after these people. Now, if you have a $500 a month client, you can't do this.
That's right.
If you have a $1,000 a month client, you can only start. You're to be able to start with something like this, you're at around $2,500 to $3,000, and your client has to understand that to rank for the top level, you're going to rank for a whole lot of longer tail keywords, so that the money is going to come in, but are they willing to hold out 3-4 months while all of this takes place? And most of these mom and pop plumbing places, working out of the garage, they can't hold out, $3,000 a month for 3-4 months. That's $9,000, $12,000. They can't come out of pocket with that, unless they really understand what it is that you can do. Yeah, and that would be your job to sell it.
And if you're selling directory, if you're trying to build a directory site, which was in your question, then you're likely going to be charging a directory listing fee, which is going to be a much, much lesser amount than if you were getting like a retainer for monthly SEO services from an individual client. I mean, again, I can only imagine that you're going to, so in order for you to rank like your index page, which would be like what you're seeing here, this is a Yelp index page. This is an Angie's List index page. You're going to have a significant number of clients in that particular business vertical or industry that are paying you in order for you to justify the cost that it would take to rank a directory index page for that type of a term, if that makes sense. So again, it's, years ago, it was so much easier to build directory sites. And I dabbled in that myself. But it's also a pain in the ass, because if you think it's hard working for an individual client, imagine if all of your revenue comes from in little tiny monthly retainers or whatever it is, monthly subscription fees, or even yearly subscription fees, which is what a lot of people want to pay when they're in a directory, and having to have dozens and dozens and dozens of clients in each business vertical, right? Then, I mean, again, you end up with a lot of churn. You end up with a lot of people that come in and say that they want to subscribe to your directory service, and if they don't get leads from you right away, they cancel. And so it just, to me, I don't know that it's worth it. I'm not trying to discourage you from it. I just know that I've done it in the past, and it's a lot of work to get a directory to rank. It's easier, in my opinion, to get an individual site to rank, and you usually get a better budget to work with at that point too. So,
and one last thing. Now, it could be that you build your directory and you rank it and you rent it, and you get this person a ton of calls, and whoever it is either doesn't answer the calls, they don't answer them in time, or they're horrible. Their phone manners are terrible, and they're not going to close any of them. Guess whose fault it is?
Yeah. In their eyes, it's your fault.
Guess whose fault it is that they can't close a deal.
Yeah.
So you run into that.
Well, your leads are shitty. No, my leads are leads.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've heard that before too. So.